All right, so today we're going to talk about chapter 6, which concerns social styles. So these slides are going to be a mix of some of my own personal slides as well as textbook. So you definitely want to read the chapter, and especially for more information on anything that is talked about today. So what are social styles? Social styles, to better explain, basically social styles, and this comes from the text, the purpose is to understand your customer and how they like to make decisions, how they like to evaluate information, that kind of stuff, and know your own social style so that you can know what aspects of yourself you may need to change a little bit if you're dealing with a customer of a different social style. So going back, why you should care about all that is because if you have different social styles, which we'll get into the specific ones in a minute, it can result in conflict. And so having an understanding of the 4 social styles, again, how they like to make decisions, time needed, information needed, also helps in building rapport. Understanding that can lead to a lot better communication as well as an overall smoother sell and the beginning of a relationship and forming trust. So one that we're going to look at today are Merrill and Reed. They're all very similar. The one that's my example that I borrowed from a colleague years and years ago is based off of Merrill and Reed. But you'll see even from my slides and what you read in the text, they're all talking about the same thing. The terms are the same. So when we interact with people, we are interacting through our social style. We all have our primary style, and when we get into them, you may say like, well, in some situations I'm this style and in others I'm this style. That's fine. Because we all have a primary and a secondary, and I'll show you, we can go between kind of two. You'll also see some styles complement each other while other styles are very different from each other. That's where you really need to understand what your customer's social style is, because you definitely don't want to have a clash in communication. So I talked about the need for information, amounts of information. I'm sorry, Chunk is shaking his collar. The need for information, the time to make decisions, those kind of fall into these 2 behavioral attributes. So assertiveness is, as it says, the effort a person makes to influence or control others' actions or thoughts. So maybe how controlling you are, if you always like to be the leader, or would you rather take a step back? Responsiveness is the time it takes, we'll see and hear, maybe to make a decision to develop relationships, has to do with time. So pace is also related to assertiveness, and priorities is what someone considers important. Again, related somewhat to, well, you look at this in task versus relationship. So how do you order what your priorities are? Are you more task oriented, or are you more talkative and like to build relationships? So I think all this will make more sense if I just get to the actual model. And so in order to describe this model, my friend Dr. Humphreys created this, which I've loved and borrowed again for years, that basically gives you an image of different dog breeds and how they relate to, if you can imagine these different breeds. So the Golden Retriever, the St. Bernard, the Border Collie, and the Terrier. If you can kind of think of those breeds, if you're a dog person, if not, there's definitions too. If you can think of those breeds and kind of imagine that maybe to help you learn. So for Dimension 1, and I want you to do this for yourself on a sheet of paper, so you can pause the video after I give the instructions and do this. For Dimension 1, you're going to write down the number that best describes you for the pair of words. So if I am ultra competitive, I'd write down a 6. If I am not at all competitive and am more cooperative, maybe I'm a 1 or 2. There's not a wrong answer here. This is just, what are you? So write down your numbers, add them together, and then divide by 7, and then that's your Dimension 1. Then you're going to do the same thing for Dimension 2. So once you get your Dimension 1 and 2, you're going to plot that. So you probably need to pause this here and there so you can do that. And then depending where you are, and I can tell you where I fall, I'm just about right over the driver line in expressive. Once you plot that, you can see what your primary style is. So for instance, my primary style is expressive, but secondary is driver. And you'll see some areas where these complement each other. These two also complement each other. You'll see some areas where these do. And when they're generally complementing each other, it's based on one of these dimensions. So whether it's Dimension 2 on priority or Dimension 1 on pace. So both of these, the pace is going to be higher. Both of these, the priority is going to be higher. So let's get into what each of these are. So the 4 styles. Driver, which was the lower right quadrant, is based on more of the sensing function and is very results driven. So driver, think results driven. Expressive, more imaginative, thoughtful, or not necessarily thoughtful, full of thought, thinking. Analytical, very organized, detail-oriented, analytical, analyzing analytical, yeah, so. And then amiable is more of maybe a naturally heartfelt person, in tune with their feelings, cares about how other people are feeling. And so the best way, I think, to really understand each of these is to look at their characteristics. All right, so starting at the top left with amiable, I said they were more maybe naturally heartfelt, cares about feelings. So they're going to be more on the cooperative side, very social, wants to be liked, seeks agreement, wants everyone to be happy, very concerned with how others are feeling. So thinking about group settings, or maybe even within your own family or friend group, the person that just wants everyone to always be happy and okay, doesn't want disagreements. Going down from there to analyticals, this type of person, I think of math and accounting. I mean, this could be you, and you could be like, I hate those. But very thoughtful, definitely problem solvers, like facts, details, routines, is going to take longer to make decisions because needs all of the information. Next to analyticals are drivers, and so task driven, independent, quick thinkers, want to make a decision, move forward. Also organized, analyticals will be organized too. Drivers, normally the leader in the group, never afraid to share their own opinion. And then top right, you have expressives. When I'm in class and I ask this, normally 90% of the class are expressives. So more talkative, warm, competitive, focus more on the big picture generally instead of the detail oriented. Likes attention, may also be a leader in a group. So let's just move to the next slide because I'm about to go into it, what I'm thinking. How do you work with each of these areas? Okay, expressives. You want to be interested in what they have to say. You want to let them lead when appropriate. Let them also express their own ideas. So if I'm meeting with someone that's an expressive, then I'm probably going to have some small talk, ask them about themselves. With a driver, they are not going to want a bunch of small talk. You need to get to the point, give relevant information, make your thoughts explicit, have an agenda, go in, get the sell. But what you want to do is be prepared, organized, but to the point. With an analytical, again, they're probably not going to want a lot of small talk. They're probably not going to want to talk about their family a lot. Where drivers want to get to the point, get her done. Analyticals are opposite. They need more time to make a decision. Also, where I said with drivers are getting to the point and bring in just the relevant information, analyticals are going to need more information, more time. So you can see where driver and analytical could crash. So if you're a driver and you're meeting with an analytical, you need to adapt to their social style. And adapting to their social style in this kind of model, we call that flexing to their style. So even though for me making a decision, if I'm a driver, I like to get to the point. If my customer's more analytical, they need more time, they need more information, then I'm going to provide them what they need, not how I like, what I want, if that makes sense. And then with amiable, they're going to want to move also at a slower pace. They will want small talk. They'll want to know about you, back and forth, small talk. They also like for you to show interest in them. Make sure that, especially if it's like a selling environment with multiple people, make sure everyone's getting along. So let's say I'm an amiable selling to an expressive. Well, listening's important to both, so that's good, and small talk is as well, so that's great. But if I'm an amiable selling to an expressive, even though I may like to move at a slower pace, I'm going to have to pick it up and move at the pace that an expressive is comfortable with. All right, so you can read through these.